The sun was already high when the rancher stopped dead in his tracks, his breath locking in his chest as if the air itself had turned to stone. "Don't look there." His mind screamed, but his eyes betrayed him, drifting toward the far end of the pasture where something was terribly, unmistakably wrong. The cicadas went silent, the wind slowed, and in that blinding western daylight, Ezekiel Crow stared across his land and froze in shock, knowing in his bones that whatever waited, there would change his life forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that heal the soul, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Soul of Light. Your support keeps these stories alive. Ezekiel Crow was not a cruel man, but the Wild West had carved him into something hard and careful. Years under an unforgiving sun had tightened his skin, and loss had tightened his heart. His ranch sat miles from the nearest town, a stretch of dry earth broken only by stubborn grass, cattle trails, and memories he tried not to visit. Every morning he rose before dawn, worked until his muscles trembled, and told himself that surviving was enough. He had buried his wife beneath a cottonwood years ago and learned how to live with silence as his only companion. The land had never lied to him, never abandoned him, and that was why he trusted it more than people. That trust shattered the moment he saw the disturbance near the old ravine fence. From a distance, it looked like the earth itself had been clawed open. Dust hung in the air, cattle stood unnaturally still, and a dark shape lay unmoving near the broken posts. Ezekiel felt a cold ripple travel up his spine. He had seen death before, he had caused it, he had survived it, yet this felt different, heavier, as if the land was holding its breath. He told himself it was probably a fallen steer or a predator caught in a trap, but his feet moved slowly, reluctantly. Each step stirred memories he had sworn to bury. The ravine was a place he avoided, a scar on the land where things had once gone wrong. Years earlier, a hired hand had vanished there, a young drifter with too many dreams and not enough caution. No body was ever found, the town whispered. Ezekiel carried the blame quietly, whether deserved or not. As he drew closer, the shape resolved into something impossibly small to inspire such dread. A human form lay curled in the dirt, half shaded by a collapsed fence rail. Not dead, he realized with a jolt. Breathing, barely, the figure was a young boy, no more than 10 or 11, clothes torn, skin sunburned and filthy, one arm twisted at an unnatural angle. The boy's face was slack with exhaustion, lips cracked, eyes fluttering but unfocused. Ezekiel felt his knees weaken. He had not expected this. He had not prepared his heart for this. For a long moment he stood frozen, torn between instinct and fear. Taking in strangers led to trouble. Trouble had already taken enough from him. The law asked questions. The past resurfaced. And yet the boy lay there under the open sky, abandoned by everyone else. The way Ezekiel himself had felt after the funeral, when the mourners rode away and left him alone with fresh earth and unbearable quiet. The sun beat down mercilessly as Ezekiel knelt, the smell of dust and sweat filling his senses. The boy stirred faintly, a dry sound escaping his throat that might have been a plea or might have been nothing at all. Ezekiel's hands hovered, trembling, before he finally acted. He lifted the boy carefully, surprised by how light he was, and carried him toward the ranch house, each step heavy with uncertainty. The hours that followed were filled with quiet urgency. Water, slow and careful, a clean cloth, a splint fashioned from fence wood. Ezekiel worked the way he always did, methodically, without panic, but inside him something long dormant had awakened. The boy survived the afternoon, then the evening, then the night. By the next day, sunlight streamed through the small window, illuminating a pair of frightened eyes staring back at him. The boy's name was Silas Mercer, an orphan who had fled an abusive situation and wandered too far into the wrong stretch of land. He spoke little, but his eyes told stories of hunger, fear, and betrayal that mirrored Ezekiel's own in ways he did not want to admit. Days turned into weeks. Silas healed slowly. Ezekiel found himself adjusting his routines, leaving extra food, softening his voice without realizing it. The ranch, once silent, filled with small sounds again, footsteps, breathing, life. Yet the past was not finished with Ezekiel Crow. Word travels fast in small towns, and questions began to surface. A missing boy, a rancher with a history. Ezekiel felt the old weight settle back onto his shoulders. He considered sending Silas away, convincing himself it would be safer for the child. But every time he imagined the boy alone on the road, his chest tightened. One afternoon, as Silas sat outside watching the cattle graze under the bright blue sky, Ezekiel realized something profound and terrifying. Saving the boy had not just changed Silas's fate. It had cracked open Ezekiel's carefully built armor. He was no longer merely surviving, he was caring, and caring meant risking pain. When the sheriff finally arrived, Dusk trailing behind his horse, Ezekiel stood his ground. He told the truth, all of it, about the ravine years ago, about his guilt, about finding Silas and choosing not to look away. The sheriff listened longer than Ezekiel expected. In the end, the truth mattered more than rumors. The past, once faced in daylight, lost some of its power. Silas stayed, the ranch changed. Ezekiel still worked hard, still rose before dawn, but the silence no longer felt like punishment. It felt like peace shared. The land seemed to breathe again. Grass grew thicker near the ravine. The scar softened. Years later, neighbors would say that something strange happened the day Ezekiel Crow froze in that pasture. They would say the land itself tested him, but Ezekiel knew the truth. It was not about what he saw. It was about what he chose not to turn away from. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even in the harshest daylight there is room for mercy, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps these stories reach others who need them. Before we end, we kindly ask you to comment below with a single word that this story made you feel. The sun still rises over that ranch, bright and unforgiving, but beneath it stands a man who learned that looking away is easy, and looking closer is what saves lives.